Jump right into this show. This is episode 1. We're going to talk about Pedro Martinez. I'll tell you a little bit about him. Born October 25th, 1971, 5'11", from the Dominican Republic. Played for 5 teams, 1992, 2009, and the Red Sox, 1998, 2004. So what are your thoughts on Pedro?
He was probably the greatest pitcher I ever saw in my lifetime.
Yep.
He won over 20 games a couple times in his career, especially 1999 was probably his best season. He won the Triple Crown that year. He led the league in wins, strikeouts, and ERA. His performance in the All-Star game that year was something that stands out because he 5 strikeouts. He struck out the first 5 guys he faced. And some of those guys, he struck out Barry Larkin, who was a Hall of Famer, Larry Walker, a Hall of Famer. Obviously, Mark McGuire, but Sammy Sosa, Jeff Bagwell. He struck out Jeff Bagwell, who's also a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Obviously, McGuire and Sosa never got into the Hall of Fame because of the whole steroid PED scandal around them. What else? He was his final start with the Red Sox was his only start in the World Series with them, which I kind of wish they kept him, but they just kind of let him walk after that World Series. That was a disappointment for me. Yeah, and then he went through injuries after he signed that contract with the Mets.
Right. Yep.
And that was tough to watch.
Yeah. So his record: 219 wins, 100 losses. Career ERA 2.93, 3,154 strikeouts.
Which is amazing. I think that's the best. I think that's amazing. I mean, growing up, just whenever his time to pitch, it was like a big spectacle around the family. Everybody had to stop what they're doing just to watch this guy pitch. Yep. I remember it seemed like he would have like 2-3 strikeouts every single inning. It was fun to watch.
He was kind of like, his career was long, but he was kind of like a Sandy Koufax. So dominant in that, say 5-6 year period.
It was mostly with the Red Sox. That's what he was mostly known for. I think people forget he was with the Expos because the Expos were kind of, what's the word? Nobody really paid much attention to the Expos, which is why they're no longer in Montreal. They're moving to DC, but I don't know. I mean, the Expos had some very good players growing up, but they could never keep any of them.
Oh yeah, Andre Dawson the kid, Gary Carter.
Yep, Gary Carter. He had Larry Walker for a little bit of time. Pedro was there for a brief time.
You know what I found out researching this show? I didn't know or forgot that Pedro won a Cy Young when he was with the Expos. He
did. It was his last season.
1997. Yep.
But I remember the '97 season because he was a free agent at the end of the season, and the Expos were like they were a small market team. They knew they weren't going to be able to afford to keep him. So I remember they were shopping around trying to find out who they could keep because he was a free agent at the '98 coming. So originally the Yankees were trying to get him, but the Yankees refused to give up Derek Jeter. I remember that was who they were going to get. That's who the Expos wanted.
That's not going to happen.
So it never was going to. So the Yankees were kind of, because at the time Jeter had just won a World Series. What was it? World Series Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
They knew he was going to be something. So.
Yeah.
And the Red Sox had a choice. They needed an ace because they didn't have an ace after Clemens left.
Yeah.
So they gave up 2 pitching prospects to get him, who, at the time, they thought were going to be the next great Roger Clemenses, but it never happened with the two guys they gave up. So they got Pedro, and as soon as they got him, they gave him they signed him that same exact day they traded for him.
Wow. Yep.
I forget how much, but it was like 7 years for. Forget how much it was.
Yeah, because he won 3 Cy Youngs: 1997 with the Expos, and 1999 and 2000 with the Red Sox. Well, you say those are his glory.
99, especially 99, because the Red Sox had entered 99. They had just lost Mahan to free agency.
So there's a name from the past.
They didn't have, their offense was basically going to be built around Nomad.
Yep.
And Pedro just came. I mean, he just finished his first year with the Red Sox, so he comes into his second year. And I remember they were destined. Everybody was like, "Oh, this team's going to win the World Series."
Yep.
Especially the way that Pedro pitched in '99, because to me that season strikeout, he had over 300 strikeouts that season in 1999. So that's what stands out to me. But he won over 20 games. It was probably one of the best seasons in the sophomore pitcher.
Yeah, because he was 3-time strikeout leader, 1999, 2000, and 2002.
Yes. Well, 2001, he was injured for most of the season.
Oh, okay.
So that's why he was never up after.
Yeah, what did he have? Like a shoulder?
It was his shoulder. That's when he started having shoulder
Right.
issues. At the time, it was in 2001.
Yeah, and 1999 he was a triple crown in pitching.
Because he led the league in wins, ERA, and strikeouts that year, which is how the pitchers win the triple crown. But I'm still disappointed to this day because he was the runner-up for the MVP that year.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't end up getting it because they was like, oh, they can't give an MVP to a pitcher.
It's a pitcher, you're right. It's very rare.
So instead they gave it to Ivan Rodriguez from the Rangers, who was
Yep.
the catcher for the Rangers at the time. But it's still, to me, I thought Pedro's 1999 season was the best I ever saw from a baseball player.
Yeah, because very rare where they give the pitcher the MVP because they figure they're going to get the Cy Young.
Well, because the pitcher, they don't play every single day. They only
Right.
pitch once every 5 days.
Didn't Eckersley get MVP, but that was when he was a reliever
No,
with the A's?
he got the Cy Young Award. He got both. He got a Cy Young and MVP.
I could see that if you're a reliever, MVP. I could see you get an MVP if you're a starter, if you deserve it.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
1999. I thought Pedro should have won the MVP in 1999,
Yep.
but it didn't happen.
Yeah, and he was a 5-time Major League leader, ERA leader.
He was.
97, 99, 2000, 2002, and 2003. You know what's interesting I found out? I know you probably know this. He was a minor league player of the year in 1991, but he wasn't really highly regarded.
He wasn't because he was a short guy. So nobody. So when he was with the Dodgers, they didn't think he was going to be able to be a starter because he was only 5'11".
Right.
So for his first couple of years with the Dodgers, he was primarily a relief pitcher, and he did decent as a relief pitcher. But it wasn't until he got to the Expos that he became one of the top pitchers at this time.
When he was with the Dodgers, was he able to throw that heat?
No, it wasn't until you got to the Expos because they were at the time when the Dodgers gave up on Pedro, they were looking for a second baseman.
Yeah.
Because they had just lost their second baseman to free agency, so they made the move with the Expos to get some speedy. Can't think of the guy's name, but he was a speedy second baseman. They were looking for a second baseman. It was when he got to the Expos, he actually worked with Joe Kerrigan, who was his pitching coach in Montreal and in Boston.
Yep.
And it was Joe Kerrigan who realized that this guy's going to be something special to watch.
So he never really put on 8 pounds of muscle from. It was basically the same kind of.
He was the same kind, but it wasn't until he got to Montreal when Joe Kerrigan was his pitching coach.
And
then when Joe Kerrigan came to Boston to be the pitching coach, he convinced the Red Sox to go after Pedro Martinez.
Right. Wow. Yeah, because Pedro reminds me of Doug Flutie. I'll tell you why. Because Doug Flutie was 5'9" and 3/4. But you know what the thing was? He had hands like he was 6'5". And we know the story with Pedro's big hands.
He had long fingers. That's why he was able to throw his fastball, curveball.
Right.
His curveball, I thought, was his best pitch.
Yeah. And they talk about his changeup.
His changeup, his changeup was pretty good too.
Yeah, because you're waiting for that 93 mile an hour, and then something drops in at 84.
Oh, exactly. But I thought his curveball was his. I thought it was his signature pitch was his curveball.
Wow. Yep. And then he played for 5 teams: Dodgers, Expos, Red Sox, Mets, and the Phillies.
The Phillies, it was a brief time. It was his last. He was a mid-season pickup. He signed up because with the Phillies, he didn't begin the year playing, and then the Phillies were looking for a pitcher. So they had signed Pedro halfway through the season, and he helped them get to the World Series.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? He played for 5 teams, 4 National League teams.
He did,
so he was hitting all those years.
He's only one of 3 pitchers to win the Cy Young in both leagues.
Wow. Yup. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So,
and of course, he helps break the curse in 2004.
He did, yes.
First time the Red Sox won it since 1918. And we got to talk a little about Theo Epstein helping break in the curse with the Red Sox, 2004. And we were talking early, he also helped the Cubs.
He helped the Cubs, yes, in 2016.
And they had the curse of the Billy Goat.
The Billy Goat, yes.
And they beat Cleveland.
They beat Cleveland 7 games in 2016.
Yep, and that was the first time they won the World Series since 1908. So you've got to give Theo a lot of respect.
I think when Theo officially retires, he'll be considered for a Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of curious if he ends up going to Cleveland because they haven't won since the 40s.
Might as well. You're right. Yep.
But Theo's an interesting one because when he first he resigned as his position with the Red Sox and then came back.
Oh, that's right.
But it was around the time when Johnny Damon was with the Red Sox. It was when Theo resigned, the Red Sox was Damon to the Yankees, and Theo came back.
Yeah. And where did Theo come from?
Honest, Theo grew up in Boston. He grew up as a Red Sox fan. I think he was living in California at the time.
Yeah.
The Red Sox made him as a...
Because he's big into the analytics.
Yes,
the Bill James theories.
Well, originally the Red Sox were trying to get Billy Beane.
Right.
And then Billy Beane didn't want to. He declined the opportunity to come to the Red Sox.
How he did, why he did that.
So they have a movie based on
right.
it.
He said he wanted to, it wasn't about the money.
No, he wanted to win a world championship. So I thought when he was going to come to Boston,
right.
I thought he was going to be the guy because Billy Beane was like the top. Besides Brian Cashman, Billy Beane was like one of the top executives.
Yeah, and I think Moneyball, not just a great sports movie, that movie's a masterpiece.
It is a good movie, yes.
Because it's not just sports, it's business, and there's a lot, I think, and I've seen it 15 times.
Yeah, okay.
That's a masterpiece, Moneyball.
That is
So, we wrapped, any further thoughts on Pedro? Because I know he's one of your favorites.
I wish the Red Sox kept him, but
Yep.
there was a contract dispute after 2004. He thought
Yeah.
he deserved more than what the Red Sox were going to give him.
Yep.
And the Mets... He didn't want to play for George Steinbrenner because I think the Yankees were trying to go after him at the time. So he ended up, he's like, oh no, he went to the Mets because he always called the Yankees his big daddy.
Wow. Hey, what do you remember about that game? Was Pedro's pitcher with Grady Little? What happened in that game? Because I went to bed, I had to be up at 5 in the morning.
Well, I originally, because I remember Pedro was coming, that was in 2003. There was the elimination game. Both teams, the winner of the game was going to win the pennant.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, so Grady Little had, I forget who was warming up in the bullpen, but I know Pedro was getting near the end. He was out of gas.
Right.
So, okay, I remember seeing Grady Little coming out, and I'm like, okay, he's going to pull Pedro because he has two guys warming up. Not sure what the conversation was, but he decided to keep Pedro Martinez in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know if Pedro convinced him or what happened.
Yeah.
And then the Yankees end up rallying from, I think they were down like 2 runs, and they decided the Yankees came back to rally. They pulled Pedro, then Grady Little pulls Pedro. And obviously we know what happened then. We know that the Yankees tied the game. Tim Wakefield gives up the home run to Aaron Boone. The Yankees go to the World Series. Yankees lose the World Series that year to the Marlins.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And Grady Little was actually, that was the last game he managed with the Red Sox.
Yeah,
he was fired shortly after that.
A lot of controversy.
There's a lot of controversy. To this day it's still talked about.
So that's gonna wrap up talking about Pedro, one of the all-time greats. You give me a rotation with Pedro, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson.